is almost in key, but a little bit off. It creates this bit of uncertainty. And the most important thing is it draws people's attention, right? Because it's a little bit off. It's a little bit off the kilter when the two songs are blending in, okay? And to do this sort of mix in, it's a little more challenging because there's a lot of information happening, right? You have the melody, you have the vocal, you have the bass elements, there's all the you have your prime information and just cutting out a little bit of the low end is going to cut it for something like this. It's different when you're exiting a song which only has the kick or the snare or whatever, and you're going into another song that has a kick and a snare for the first 8 bars, and you just cut out the low end and you blend those two together. There isn't a lot of information there, and in most cases they're similar kicks. Just emphasize the importance of this one because I don't see it enough. Let's have a look and then I'll tell you what I mean. Am I recording kid? You see how it's captivating, it's fun to watch, it's entertaining, the word is. But at least for me. We don't have to have, massive lasers and take our shirt off and all this other stuff. It's fun to just watch it and get the audience closer to you, to really be with you on the journey. The approach of when do you play the next song, right? So the typical thing is 8 bars, 16 bars, okay, right? So that's just standard sort of. When's the best time to play? Well, about 8 to 16 bars before you want to do your next thing, right? The next, I would say, level from that is playing it within the structure of the music. So what I mean by that. So I know that and in electronic music, usually that sort of wash, that tail really signifies the sort of next section, the next sort of break. It signifies the verse or whatever. You can play your next song they want to blend in at that moment. This just takes a little bit of practice, but the best way to do it is to be within the music. So time it with the music and play it. The great thing about when you're manually adjusting the tempo, you have control over also adjusting where the song fits in. That's what we're doing here. So when we played it, it's just a little bit off, okay? Just a little bit. And now we're adjusting it. And the great thing here is you can even hear how we're changing the pitch a little bit, which I like to do. And now it's visually it's lined up to where I want it to be. Visually, that it's in line with the grid. And when I'm listening to it, it feels that it's working well. This is a moment when things just seem creatively aligned together. There are moments when I would like to go deeper within the music. Now, not every single thing has its own sort of meaning behind it. Sometimes it's just fun to play, and people come up with their own interpretations. In this example, I found two pieces that work well together. They are just able to blend, and they work well with what I was wanting to achieve. So you notice how when you listen to the lyrics, I don't want you to fall apart, don't leave me now, etc. We're going nowhere. Just like that, it's not really like, yeah, okay. When we have another track that is almost in key, but a little bit off, it creates this bit of uncertainty. And the most important thing is it draws people's attention, right? Because it's a little bit off. It's a little bit off to the kilter when the two songs are blending in, okay? And to do this sort of mix in, it's a little more challenging because there's a lot of information happening, right? You have the melody, you have the vocal, you have the bass elements. There's all the you have your prime information, and just cutting out a little bit of the low end is going to cut it for something like this. It's different when you're exiting a song which only has the kick or the snare or whatever, and you're going into another song that has a kick and a snare for the first 8 bars, and you just cut out the low end and you blend those two together. There isn't a lot of information there, and in most cases they're similar kicks. But when you're doing something like this, when there's a lot of information, you're blending two together, you can sometimes create this nice, almost detuned crossover. And if you have a song that has the lyrics that can work well with something like this, you can really create something fun, and you can create something from a deeper perspective, not just face value. Now, how would you do like something like this? Okay, well then again, we are talking about multiple different aspects here. We have the counterpoint, like we mentioned. So you have the melody of one, you have the vocal of another, and they're playing with each other. Okay, we are looking at understanding the keys, understanding harmonically which ones are going to go together. Again, you have your ear training, so you know how that's going to work, if it's going to work well together or not. Then you're able to sort of push the limits of that. Okay, say I can use this one along this line, sort of going to work. Another thing is try and practice it beforehand a little bit and be like, okay, I really like the vocals of this one. How can we sort of manipulate that? How can we sort of do something a bit more interesting for that? And then lastly, it's practice. Practice, 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 practice. In some cases, it's also just a bit of luck. Like here, it is a bit of creativity, have a bit of luck that it works well together, and you're able to pull it off. You just have to be careful because, like I mentioned, there's a lot of information happening. When you're not using a cappella, when you're using the full song, and then you're blending it in with another melody from the full song, you can run into trouble. But if you take those things into consideration, and you're able to complement the two together, you're able to really mash them up together to create your own live on the spot mashup. And if the vocals are able to sort of play along with it to create a multi-layer aspect in your mixing, not just on face value, but to have the vocals almost tease what's happening, to draw the audience in a little bit, that just creates something entertaining, and you're finding ways to be a little bit musical in your mixing. I hope that makes sense, right? The key is think about music, from not just there, but from the composer's perspective, from the person who created the music, and try and find creative ways to use the lyrics, use the vocal, use the song